is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
I am your father.
You like Huey Lewis on the news?
Yes. And you're not sure about this, are you?
You're gonna die, clown!
What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss? Sir? The most you ever lost on a coin toss. Call it.
Whose motorcycle is this?
It's a chopper, baby.
Whose chopper is this?
Zed's.
Who's Zed?
Zed's dead, baby.
Bring out today!
This is a tasty burger.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Welcome to the fucking show.
Hello, welcome back to ZO6, a podcast about everything and nothing. I'm Russell.
And I am Ben.
Welcome to 2019.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. We made it. We made it to another year, guys. I'm happy for all of us.
Somehow we made it.
Yeah, there's a lot I was questioning. I was like, can I make it to another year? Apparently I can.
Yeah, we all pressed through.
We did, and that's what's important. We all made it here in one piece, hopefully. But yeah, Ben, I have questions for you that I haven't prepped you for. But what are your most anticipated movies of next year?
Oh, good question. Let's see. Oh, it's a long wait, but definitely I want to see how the Star Wars, like the latest trilogy, ends. So that's in like November, I believe.
Yeah, it's usually around November, December. It's the end of the year because they know nothing's going to be up against it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like you put that around the holidays, people are going to flock there.
Oh,
really,
yeah.
Honestly, like for something like Star Wars, you could probably put that. I mean, as long as it's like a main numbered entry, like episode 6, 7, 8, what have you. I think you could put that in any part of the year, and it would do gangbusters.
Yeah, I'm going to say something controversial. I'm sick of Star Wars.
They do need, and I think they've already planned on it. Like they're going to take they're not going to do a yearly release schedule.
Oh, thank God, because it's not like they're bad films, and someone who's listening to this is going to get triggered by it and be like, well, you just don't understand. You're right, I probably don't understand. However, I'm just sick of them. I'm sick of the whole thing, and that doesn't mean they're not good films or whatever. I'm just sick of it. So, yes. But I am excited to see how they wrap up Episode 9, because Episode 8 kind of seemed like the end of the trilogy.
A little bit it did. Just because mainly there were so many big characters that have exited from the from the series. Like, I'm guessing most of our listening audience has most likely seen The Last Jedi. So, but yeah, like the exit of, we can't. It's not for sure that whether they will be brought back in some way, shape, or form. Because with Star Wars, it's like
you never know.
Nobody's ever really gone.
Yeah,
but with the exit of Luke, unfortunately Leia with Carrie Fisher's death.
Yeah,
Han went away in Episode 6 or 7, excuse me.
Yeah,
in Force Awakens. So it'll be interesting to see how well the new cast of characters or the newer cast in this latest trilogy is going to truly kind of take the mantle and see where they go with it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and I don't think that's going to be bad in any way because Disney, love them or hate them, has a way of making things good. And yeah, I think I am anticipating Star Wars. I think if we're going to go down the Disney path, I think something I am looking forward to more than Star Wars is the Avengers Endgame. I think yes. I'm looking forward to that more than Star Wars. Maybe because it's happening before Star Wars is. Then after Avengers is over, I'll be like, oh, the next big hype movie will be Star Wars. But I think that's where my brain is kind of at.
Yeah. Looking through some of the 2019 film release or at least movies they're anticipated to come out in 2019, it's really like not depressing, but it's just like, man, there is not a original idea in the bunch.
No,
minus like maybe a handful of films that I'm seeing here.
I'm excited to see Us, the Jordan Peele one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's an original concept. I'm excited to see that, and Glass, which is the M. Night Shyamalan-averse superhero-esque thing. I'm really, really hyped to see it because it's going to be kind of horror, but kind of superhero. That and Brightburn, those two have some serious potential.
Yeah. I'm also looking forward to John Wick 3.
Yes.
The first two movies are just ridiculously good, just straight up balls to the wall action movies. Mm-hmm. And I'm all about that shit. Let's see, what else do we have?
Godzilla is coming out. That looks like it's going to be just awesome.
Yeah, straight up popcorn.
Yeah.
Muncher, and you know exactly what you're getting into. Big ass monsters beating the hell out of each other. I mean, if you go into that thinking there's going to be anything more,
you're probably wrong.
You're going to be a bit disappointed.
Yeah. I think that's going to be good. They're making another Zombieland movie, which that's been a 10-year gap. And I don't know if I am excited to see that. I'm kind of sick of zombies, but Woody Harrelson's pretty great. And the new Joker movie is coming out, and I have a lot of hype for that.
Yeah, I think they've only released like a few, what do you call it, like promotional photos or whatever. They've showed Joaquin Phoenix like in his Joker makeup. Mm-hmm. It looks like a pretty original take on it, I guess. And of course, it's a origin story. So like his makeup by the end of the film may be drastically different and look more or less like
the Joker.
Yeah, like what we kind of picture as the Joker, like green hair. I think he might actually have green hair in some of the early promotional shots, but he looks more like just a regular clown, but creepier.
Yeah. He has like the blue triangles around his eyes. I think that's what makes people think, and the red nose. And I think that's what's like throwing people off. But, I mean, they in theory could pull this off with that look. Because people freaked out about the Heath Ledger Joker thing back in like 2008. So, it can be done. Like a really different take.
Right. And, I'm not against different actors putting their own spin on these kind of characters at all. Because, I think I remember way back when they first announced, Heath Ledger, like, all I ever knew him from was, like, A Knight's Tale and 10 Things I Hate About You. So, like, this, like, early mid-2000s sort of, like, hunk of a boy that a lot of, like, teenage girls would love. And I'm thinking, like, he's going to do a Joker in, like, a serious, like, Christopher Nolan movie?
Yeah.
Like, really?
I remember,
But obviously we all know how that ended.
Yeah, I remember when I first saw the concept art or like the behind the scenes art of him. It's just like him up against that wall with the clown mask or the clown face, like the really like runny paint. I saw him like, oh my god. And I think I was probably, I don't know how old I was at the time, but I was a certain age. And I just remember seeing that. I'm like, are they doing a horror movie out of this? Because Batman Begins was just like a really dark take on Batman and really grounded. And then when I saw the Joker reveal, I'm like, whoa. Like, that's actually scary. And it was really cool because at the time they filmed those movies in Chicago, and I'm from Chicago. So it was really cool to go around town and see like the Gotham City police cars and all the cool stuff they had in the city for that entire summer filming those movies in like 2007, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. It was Chicago for The Dark Knight, and I think The Dark Knight Rises was a lot of that in Pittsburgh, I think. Yeah,
there's a few shots in Chicago, like the skyline and then one or two street shots, but most of it was in Pittsburgh, yeah.
Okay.
Which is fine, because it like gave the city a different feel, because Batman Begins and Dark Knight were in Chicago.
Right.
Which some people are pissed that they didn't do the third one entirely in Chicago, but it doesn't bother me because there's a lot of cool shots that made the city feel less like just Chicago and more like a fictional city.
Yeah, a fictional city. Yeah, you do those you do the tight shots of just like a normal like city block, you could kind of make that look like any major metropolitan area.
Yeah, definitely. And a few of the other movies that are coming out, I don't know if I would say I'm hype for, but movies that are coming out. Besides, you said John Wick, I'm stoked that It Chapter 2 is coming out, and I'm really hyped for that.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other ones that are coming out, I think all of them are... No, Shazam is coming out. I don't know what to think about that.
I really don't know anything about that character. So, I will basically be going into that if I end up going to see it, like at a theater. I'll be going in like completely cold.
So I can tell you a little bit about it. It's about this guy named Billy Batson. He essentially is given the powers of Shazam by this wizard. And what Shazam is he transforms into an older version of himself, but with superpowers when he says the word Shazam. So when he's the kid version of himself, he's just like a 13-year-old kid. But when he says Shazam, it like transforms him into like a 30-year-old version of himself who is essentially Superman.
Okay.
But mentally, he's still a kid.
Okay. And from what I've seen, they're taking like a less serious tone about it. It's it's looking pretty goofy. Was that kind of the tone through the comics or throughout any of the comic runs? From
what I've read with Shazam in it, and actually Shazam in the comics is called Captain Marvel. There's a whole thing. There's two different Captain Marvels, a Captain Marvel in the Marvel Universe, which is a movie that's coming out, and then Shazam, who's also Captain Marvel, but a different Captain Marvel, who they've changed to Shazam. Yeah,
is it Shazam in the DC universe, though?
Yes, he is. There's two different Captain Marvels in two different universes.
Oh my god.
It is very complicated, but he is now called Shazam. But yeah, Shazam, I think it is more lighthearted. The runs of Shazam that I have read have been more serious, but I think the source material of that character is more joking. Okay. I might be wrong. Someone will correct me on that, but from what I understand, that is true. But I could be 100% wrong.
Yeah, like it seems like a child who turns into an adult superhero like on a whim. That seems like it would be hard to nail down a serious tone for that.
Yeah, 100%. I do agree. And then what else is coming out is Captain Marvel. It looks like it might be cool. Detective Pikachu, as I said before on a previous episode, that has promise.
Yeah, and it looks like a couple new X-Men universe films, Dark Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And the New Mutants, which I'm very intrigued by.
The horror one.
Yeah, looks like a straight up horror movie. And I think that's a very interesting spin to put on that universe. I think it could work well. Or it could be a total disaster.
I think it could work well. That does have promise. Also has like Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones and a bunch of other like quite talented actors. So I'm like, this might be very good. But you never know. And then what else is coming out is Lion King, Toy Story 4, Aladdin, Spider-Man, Far From Home, Captain Marvel, and yeah, those are the things that we didn't mention. All of those other things, okay, cool. I'm not that hyped for. I'll probably see some of them. The other ones, I'll wait till they go on Netflix or whatever.
Yeah, it looks like Disney is going to make like $1 trillion this year from all their properties and releases.
Yeah, and like I said before, love them or hate them, I have a feeling the Disney bubble will pop.
We'll see.
I don't think it'll be this year, but maybe like 2023 or something. I think.
But by the time they run out of animated movies to redo in live action / CG.
Yeah, I do think that. Actually, have you seen Mowgli on Netflix?
I have not watched that yet.
Okay. The CGI is not as good as the Jungle Book that Jon Favreau did with Disney, the live-action CG version. Mm-hmm. But Mowgli on Netflix, seriously, for anyone listening, do yourself a favor and watch it. It is not a kid's movie. It is not a kid's movie. It is more, from what I understand, it's very closely related to the book, the original Jungle Book that was made. Holy shit, it is so good. It is incredibly good. There's a few things in it that I'm like, this is very Andy Serkis. I like that. But I understand why critics might not like it as much. But it is a better film. It is a better story that is told. And the motivation of the Mowgli character is so much more well realized. And it's just, he feels more like a real human who would be kind of having this feeling of not knowing who he is or what he is or why, more than the Disney version that's just like, let's sing bare necessity. This one is
whimsical and meant to be that sort of, hey, remember the animated one with Baloo and all the fun you had there. Let's make it live action CG and keep the same tone. But
yes.
I didn't know that Mowgli was meant to be more of a dark, more adult version of it.
I would not. It's not rated R, but this is not for kids. It is not for kids. I didn't really realize that going into it. I knew Andy Serkis did it, and Andy Serkis is pretty damn talented. And he plays Baloo in the movie. But Shere Khan is played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Bagheera the Jaguar is Christian Bale. And there's a bunch of other people. But in general, I think the cast they picked for the Mowgli version is just better as well. The Shere Khan in the Disney version is Idris Elba.
Yes.
But Benedict Cumberbatch somehow is just better. He's more menacing and he's more evil. He's more like an intimidating evil person, and he's not just like mustache twirling evil. He's like, there's like some like malicious stuff in there. You're like, whoa, like it's like something Disney wouldn't do, but it is incredibly good.
That speaks volumes to like Benedict Cumberbatch's sort of voice work talent, because he can do that, but then he can also do something like The Grinch.
Yes.
Like that just recently came out. So like good on him for being just a talented actor in front of a camera as well as a voice talent.
And yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch also is, a lot of people say he's ugly. I don't think so. He's just a very interesting looking guy. Shere Khan in the Mowgli movie looks like him. They somehow captured part of his face, like something with his eyes and his nose in that tiger, and it looks so much like him in such a strange way. Like if someone didn't tell you that was Benedict Cumberbatch and someone asked you what actor does this look like, you're like, it kind of looks like Benedict Cumberbatch, like a little bit. Yeah. And the animals in the movie are more anthropomorphized, if that's a word. They're more anthropomorphic, they're more human-like than the Disney version, which are like wolves and jaguars talking. But these, they make them look a little more human-like. They give them more eyebrow expression and more like lip expression, which people are like, the CGI isn't as good. No, the budget isn't there, but the animals aren't supposed to exactly look like real animals. They're supposed to look like an animal, but also like have this personality to them.
That's okay. That sounds more like, that sounds like that Andy Serkis does have his sort of touch on that, because he's, obviously well known for Smeagol, Gollum, and a lot of his really expressionist sort of acting, because he does a lot of motion capture stuff for several films. It sounds like they did a thing similar to what they do in the video game industry, trying to capture actors' faces. Like they'll put the little green dots on their face to capture every single sort of little muscle movement in a face to get that true facial expression.
Yeah.
That sounds like what they've probably done. And yeah, if you're familiar, for people out there, if you're familiar with the filmmaking industry, like Andy Serkis is like, he's like the name for like motion capture and that kind of stuff. So that does sound like he has a pretty big mark on that, or that's his kind of mark on the film.
And here, I'll show you. I know this is bad radio, but I'll pull it up for you. Can you see the camera?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Shere Khan in it, and it looks like Benedict Cumberbatch if he was a tiger. It's something with the eyes, and then this is what Baloo looks like in the movie. He looks like Andy Serkis if Andy Serkis was a bear.
Oh, yeah. Definitely the eye detail is what kind of makes those work for those actors.
Yeah, I think it works in the same way that like Gollum / Smeagol in The Lord of the Rings works, because that character doesn't look like a normal human or a hobbit, which is what Smeagol Gollum was before like the ring corrupted him. But that character that they made for those films is an almost alien kind of creature, but it's not, and there's this humanness to it. And same with Caesar from Planet of the Apes. There's some humanness. Yeah. And I think that's what really sells that, because people are like, well, the Disney version just looks like a wolf talking. Oh, yeah, cool, thank you.
Like, what else do you want?
But this, they take a little bit out of it, and I think it works.
Okay. And it adds more human personality to
Yeah,
it, I guess.
yeah, you get more attached to it, and when you watch it, you'll see what I mean.
Okay.
But I was going to make a comment about the Joker movie that Joaquin Phoenix's hair in that movie is the same haircut as I have right now.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like to that length where it's like swept back. For those of you who've been listening for a long time, I'm growing my hair out quite long, and I'm finally past the awkward stage of having long hair. It's finally...
I think it's getting to, from what I imagine, what your goal is.
Yeah.
Is, what you want it to be. It's looking good.
Well, thank you. Growing out your hair, I didn't realize from very short hair to that I used to have, like, where I spiked it up in the front, like, very short. It's a process. And there's, like, these weird awkward phases I didn't know was a thing. And then you have to, like, gel your hair and put stuff in it. But yeah, this is another bad radio. This doesn't matter to anyone else, but I'll show Ben. This is what I'm doing to it.
Okay.
So
yeah, you got a little bit to go there.
I'm like 3/4 of the way.
Yeah, few more months, and I think you'll be right there. But
yeah,
you're on track.
Yeah. So for those of you out there wondering, if you guys know like Bradley Cooper's hair, that's where my length is right now. Like Bradley Cooper in The Hangover is like the length of my hair right now. So yeah. But that's that on movies. I just wanted to talk to Ben about because of what our next topic is on the show. Ben, what's our next topic?
Kind of going back to one of the 2019 film releases by Quentin Tarantino, which is what was it? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We're going to be kicking around with Tarantino films, and both. I guess we'll probably end up ranking our personal favorites as well as kind of what we think of the man himself. And I'm pretty sure we got some pretty good opinions about him.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
Not necessarily always good, as in like we think highly of him in every regard, but we'll have some interesting things to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to do the films in chronological order? Because if we do them from order of favorite to least favorite, I don't think we'll be on the same page.
Right. Yeah, we can go ahead and we'll just do his directorial efforts.
Okay.
Because he's produced tons of stuff. He's actually has a lot more writing credits than what I knew.
Yeah.
On a lot of major things, but his first film that he directed, it premiered at Sundance, Reservoir Dogs.
Yes. So Reservoir Dogs, I'm just looking up year wise.
Yeah, 1992.
That was 92. Yep. So apparently there's another film he did that was 1987, but I think that was like a student film or something. That I don't think that counts. I think it's like a short film.
Right. Where he broke through was
that for all intents and purposes, that's what we're talking about. So Reservoir Dogs, for all of these, we'll summarize them in a very, 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 very short manner, and then get into what we like, what we don't like. So I'll do Reservoir Dogs. You can do the next film.
Sure.
Okay, so Reservoir Dogs is a anti-heist film. It takes place mostly in one single room in a warehouse that's like the getaway spot. And all of the characters have color names. So Mr. Pink, Mr. Brown, like Mr. Purple, Mr. Black, so on and so forth. It's because they're undercover because they're doing this heist. In the film, the heist goes wildly wrong and goes completely off the rails. And it essentially is a recounting of how a certain character is undercover the entire time and is playing a double agent while he's been shot in the stomach and bleeding out. And he is essentially watching another person interrogate a police officer and go into complete madness in a warehouse.
That's really it. It's a very simple, like stripped down premise.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the best things about it is how Tarantino had to work kind of within his means because it was an independent film.
Yeah.
He was looking for distribution when he took it to Sundance. But yeah, I mean, he smartly was able to create a very gripping and just like awesome movie with what little resources he had. But I think probably the most money was most likely spent on the actors.
Oh yeah. I can't imagine there's any money spent on like the sets. Maybe the cop cars they use, but the set is literally just a warehouse. And then there's a scene at the very beginning in a diner, and that's like a conversation about how much do you leave for tips, which is a very interesting opening scene.
It really kind of it set up Tarantino. One of Tarantino's biggest sort of qualities, in my opinion, is like his dialogue writing.
Yes.
This is where people were introduced to, like, this guy will write 5 to 10 minute scenes seemingly about nothing, but what they are brilliant at is setting up like the characters and their sort of their motivations, what these people are like, all while talking about just, you know, the most everyday boring kind of things. Yes.
And I generally do feel like Quentin Tarantino has this very, very good talent, like what you were saying there a second ago, of making dialogue feel real. He makes these characters feel like they had a life before this movie started, and they're going to have a life after the movie ends. Their lives don't just revolve around the plot of the film. They are real characters that you're just like stepping into their life at this moment and stepping out at another moment. So yeah, Tarantino has a really good ability to do that. And I think that is something, just the ability to make his characters feel like they're living in a real world, that helps his movies later down the road, even if the plot of the movie isn't fantastic.
I agree with that. I think that's his best trait, is his dialogue and sort of humanizing a lot of his characters in a lot of these kind of grand plot schemes that sometimes he builds up.
Yeah, definitely. And so yeah, let's talk about this movie for a little bit. And do you like it?
Oh yeah, I love Reservoir Dogs. I think it's a fantastic movie. I think one of the best things about it is how it doesn't show the heist that goes wrong. I think that was a smart move, and probably one that was necessary, probably because of his budget constraints. Mm-hmm. But he writes so brilliantly around it to where you don't need to see the actual heist.
Yes.
And his dialogue and his characters and his actors that he directs definitely show that something went terribly wrong.
Yeah.
Especially just Tim Roth, and he's a fantastic actor when acting like he gets shot in the stomach. He is writhing in pain. And for its time, it seems kind of quaint to think about now, but in '92, it was considered like a very violent, bloody movie.
Yeah.
And while there is violence and a lot of blood in it, it's very tame.
Yeah, it's the scene where Tim Roth does get shot in the car by the old lady is really visceral. It's really real, and that, I think, is the movie's biggest strength, is it forces you to be in that moment with Tim Roth's character, and that's why you don't see the rest of the heist, because it kind of just is following his perspective, and him and like Harvey Keitel are sort of, and then Mr. Brown or Mr. Black, like the crazy dude. What's his name? I'm gonna look up the actor.
Michael Madsen.
Yeah.
Mr. Orange?
Is he Mr. Orange?
I think so.
Because, yeah, let's look this up. I took a bunch of notes on the movie, but I neglected to write down names because that's what this podcast is about. So yeah, let's do this. Yeah, so Tim Roth is Mr. Orange, Harvey Keitel is Mr. White, and Michael Madsen is Mr. Blonde.
Mr. Blonde, that's right.
Yeah, so those are the ones we'll focus on. And then Quentin Tarantino is in the movie as Mr. Brown.
Yeah, he's there and then he's not, basically, which is probably another smart move by him, because we'll probably talk about it later. Tarantino's not the best actor.
No. In the next movie we're talking about, chronologically, we will talk about how bad of an actor he is and some of the things he says in that role. So, the movie essentially is just in a warehouse the entire time, and it's like a character study of what it's like to be trapped somewhere as an undercover agent while you're dying.
Yeah. And kind of the motivations behind some of the other people that are actually criminals. I think Steve Buscemi, his Mr. Pink, is actually one of my favorite characters in the movie.
Oh yeah,
because he constantly reminds people of how much of a professional he is, and how he's like the one that's trying to keep things. He's trying to be the straight man, even though he can be kind of ridiculous with some of his dialogue. But yeah, I really like Steve Buscemi's character, and of course Michael Madsen as Mr. Blonde. He has the infamous scene where he pretty much tortures a tied up cop in the warehouse,
and he cuts his ear off.
Yeah, with another really good, probably budget constraint style thing, but the camera right as Michael Madsen is getting ready to cut off his hair just kind of slowly pans away from her, and all you hear is the gagged cop just like screaming in pain.
And the music in the background, it's almost like the scene from American Psycho when they're playing Huey Lewis in the News. It's like, do you like Huey Lewis in the News? And it's just like, it takes a song that you wouldn't in theory place with it, and it works so well. And that's something I think we're going to talk about Tarantino a little more about, is his choice of music in films is very good. And
yes, it's very deliberate. If this even makes sense, like deliberate in a not like overly obvious way.
Yes. It's very like, you can tell that it's not an accident, but he's like, I'm doing this to you and I know what I'm doing kind of move. And I really, really do like that.
Yeah. I don't know what, how much more there is to say about Reservoir Dogs. It's just something like, it was really, I mean, and I didn't see this movie until probably in high school after he had already had several releases or films under his belt by then. But I can imagine seeing this for the first time. It had to have been something like, ooh, this guy has something special.
Yeah.
And he's going to have some good films coming out like in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I saw this movie when I was in high school. Actually, maybe younger. Maybe I was in grade school. It might have been like 7th grade. Which is good. It's good to show maybe even earlier. I was probably 10. It's probably good to show a 10-year-old this movie. That's why I am the way that I am now. Because I was shown these movies when I was younger. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I actually thank you. It is good. But yeah, so that was that movie. Really positive in nearly every way. I don't like saying films are a perfect film, but for what this is, it does exactly the job it needs to.
Yeah.
And
agreed. It does what it needs to with what he was given, and it seems like he knew his constraints and he worked perfectly within those constraints.
Yep. So Ben, one of my favorite movies of all time. I think I have it in the opening titles of our podcast twice. Quotes from this movie. The Who's Zed? Zed's Dead Baby, and That's a Tasty Burger. Let's talk about the next movie, probably the most famous one on this list.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely it will remain his most well-known and arguably his best made film.
Yes. So Ben, take it away. What movie are we talking about?
1994's Pulp Fiction. With, I would say this one more popularized the filmmaking trick of like kind of broken up timelines and storytelling, even though it was done with Reservoir Dogs, because not everything is chronological or in a really neatly packaged story arc. But Pulp Fiction definitely takes that to like the nth degree, and everything's out of order, but all comes together very nicely in the end. And basically, it's another kind of crime-oriented film, which goes over or covers the stories of several different people, from John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson's hitmen, who are I would say probably the focal point of the movie. Mm-hmm. Definitely the most famous ones. You have Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer as the two criminals in the diner who try and hold up the place and rob it. They come into play near the end of the movie again. They're the first character seen on screen. They're going through they're having a classic Tarantino dialogue about nothing right before they both start yelling at the diner, saying this is a robbery. Who else? You got Bruce Willis, Ving Rhames,
Marcellus Wallace.
Yes, Marcellus Wallace, definitely a memorable character. Uma Thurman as Mia Wallace, who is on the box art for the movie. Even though she kind of she's on the cover of the poster in the box art of the movie, but she kind of takes a back seat. I guess in this, you would think like she's like the star of it from like kind of how iconic that poster is. But I mean, in her role is very important, but it's kind of like it's definitely overshadowed by Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, like by far.
Yeah, I really do think it's a film that every scene. This sounds like a bad. I mean this in the best way. Every time someone's on screen, they steal the show. It's almost like it's an ensemble cast, but every time someone is speaking, your attention automatically goes to them every single time, almost like a play. And it's almost like a spotlight gets focused on this, and then on this, and then on this. And it's just so well done. I think we're spoiling each of these movies, but as Ben said, the movie is out of order. So the beginning and end are near the beginning of the story of the film, because the end of the movie, where it ends, is when Bruce Willis rides off into the sunset on the chopper. That's technically the end of the timeline, because that's when he kills John Travolta.
Exactly. John Travolta eating a Pop-Tart.
Yeah, it's so good. So yeah, that, and then the movie is out of order. So it opens up with Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta arguing about McDonald's in France because they use the metric system, and it's not a quarter pounder of cheese, it's a Royale cheese, which is a real thing, by the way.
Yes, yes it is.
And
I think that scene is after Tim Roth and Rosanna Arquette's standing up, because that's when they stand up and say, like, this is a robbery, nobody fucking move. That's when the title hits with Pulp Fiction, and that's when I forget the name of the song, or
the Black Eyed Peas did a cover of it.
Exactly, yeah, it's very famous from Pulp Fiction. Like, people recognize that. But yeah, and then it goes into Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson's iconic. This movie has so many small iconic parts in it. Yeah, and I think we'll probably get to this later, his Oscar nominations, but I think a lot of people considered Tarantino not getting a Best Director or this getting Best Picture. I think a lot of people considered this a huge, huge misstep from the Academy. Yeah, this was 1994, so it was 1994, 1995 Academy Awards. I don't know what won that year. I'm sure it was something really good. But Forrest Gump, I think. Okay. That's a hard one to pass. But I think this movie did something that not a lot of other movies I think successfully have done in a mainstream, which one was make something so visceral and real, 2, make it out of order and time jump it, and 3, make it so engaging in a really twisted kind of way. Because this movie, there is no redeemable characters in this. And it does the thing where they never show you what's in the briefcase except the gold light, and I love that so much. Where you never really know what Marcellus Wallace has, what that thing is. This movie actually reminds me a lot of The Big Lebowski. I don't know why, but it reminds me so much of The Big Lebowski every time I see it, which is only a compliment because I love that. We should do a Coen Brothers episode as well. That would be... Oh, yeah. That's probably the next one we'll tackle is the Coen Brothers. But, yeah, so this movie, it opens up on a heist, and then it goes into Samuel Jackson and John Travolta going to rough up these people and get some information. However, when they're at this meeting, things go south, and they end up killing a lot of people and taking one of the members who was in the bathroom hostage in the back of their car. So I'm going to tell the story in chronological order, not film order, because it makes more sense to tell the movie in the chronology, not how the film is cut. So then after they get this guy in the car, John Travolta is talking to him, and they go over a speed bump, and he blows his head off by accident, the guy in the back seat. So
the thing they do is they go to Quentin Tarantino's house. This is where the Quentin Tarantino problems, where you separate the art from the artist, comes in. Quentin Tarantino is just like a guy that they know in the movie, and then they call the Wolf, which is Harvey Keitel.
Like a cleaner,
basically. Yeah, they call the Wolf, which is Harvey Keitel, which is a really good role. But Quentin Tarantino in this movie says the N-word a lot.
A lot.
I don't know if it's a creative choice. It definitely is not appropriate for any time. What do you think about that? In the context of the film, and it just, I mean, in general, yeah, don't ever do that. But what do you think? Does it take you out of it?
It does, because it's somehow jarringly he says it.
Yeah.
He says it with a lot of, with like purpose, really.
Like, yeah, it's really hard R. It's like, well, first, it's never okay to say that word. Two, if you say that word with a really hard R and biting like that, you're just like, ugh. It makes you like squirm.
Yeah, and for the purpose of the film, I really don't see how it's necessary.
Yes.
Because it doesn't add anything except for just like a layer of, like, especially to Tarantino's character, it doesn't add anything like of worth.
Yeah.
For the film. It's just like it. I don't know if this is true of Tarantino or whatever. It just, a lot of times in his films, whenever when he himself says it, or even when he writes a white person saying the word, I don't know. It feels like it's just kind of like him saying it because he can get away with it.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's his motivation as a person. I would hope it's not.
Yeah, I
have not looked up like any sort of interviews, or if Tarantino ever felt the need to explain himself as like far as this, because this is something that comes up when people discuss Tarantino as like a filmmaker. Like, his films are kind of notorious for their racial language.
Yes.
In some of his later films, I can see it being more justified because they're period pieces.
Yes.
But something like Pulp Fiction, where it took place in the present day of '94, and Tarantino's just on screen saying it left and right, it did take me out of it, and like I said, it doesn't feel like it's necessary to the film.
Yeah, it feels like it's one of those situations where he, in quotes, can get away with it, so he does. He takes advantage of that opportunity, which I don't think is right, because there's no other white character or cast member in that film who says that word. Actually, there is, with the rape scene, which we will talk about as well.
Okay, yes.
And
it seems like it shouldn't work because he says it directly in front of Samuel L. Jackson.
But somehow it weirdly, in the context of that film, does. I can only imagine that Samuel L. Jackson wanted to punch him in the face every time he said that word. But yeah, it's so weird. And that scene in general just kind of takes you out of the movie, where they're in the house, and it's like, wow, that's some good coffee. Like, that whole thing. And it's like, I know it's good coffee. My wife doesn't buy me shitty coffee. It's like, I get it's almost trying to be funny, but it's like, it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah. I would imagine that it was meant to feel uncomfortable, but adding in that word just kind of takes it to a degree where it's just like, it's uncomfortable to where you start to dislike that portion of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many more excellent qualities about this film, but that particular scene I never really enjoy watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's just hard. So, let's go to a lighter topic and talk about the pawn shop scene.
Oh,
with
boy,
with Bruce Willis and Ving Rhames. So, yeah, you want to break down what this scene is? This actually has a very, very good spoof in The Simpsons. A very, very good spoof.
So it starts with Bruce Willis like in a car. He sees Ving Rhames crossing the street directly in front of him.
But the reason this happens is Bruce Willis is a boxer. Bruce Willis didn't lose the fight, so Ving Rhames wants to kill him.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sorry. That's definitely a very important plot point that puts this all into context. Marcellus Wallace wants Bruce Willis's character dead.
Mm-hmm.
And as Bruce Willis is sitting in a car at a traffic light, Ving Rhames' character just is crossing. They both make eye contact, and they both immediately realize, like, oh shit. Yeah. And Bruce Willis pounds on the gas, hits Marcellus Wallace. They both end up, like, through this whole scuffle, they both end up fighting into, like, a pawn shop where I want to say the owner or just an employee of the pawn shop basically, like, holds them both up at gunpoint, and then it turns very dark.
Yeah.
Right.
So it is a torture / prison rape scene in the basement of a pawn shop where there is a man who is called the Gimp.
The Gimp.
Who is a dude. I don't know how to describe this on this podcast. He is a guy who is in full skin-tight leather, like, sex BDSM outfit with, like, only a mouth hole.
Yeah, like a zipper mouth hole, basically. Like, yeah.
And, yeah, that's a thing. And essentially, the scene, what happens is Ving Rhames gets sexually assaulted by these gentlemen, and Bruce Willis escapes, gets a katana, Japanese samurai sword, comes down there and murders everyone with a samurai sword and frees Ving Rhames, and the line is, let's never talk about this, or whatever the line he says is, because I rewatched these last week, and I somehow, in my brain, wiped that scene from my mind, and it started, I'm like, oh shit, that's part of this movie. I'm going to have to sit through this next 15 minutes. And it is, I think out of all of Quentin Tarantino's films, is the most uncomfortable thing I have ever watched in any of his films.
It's definitely, I don't think it's a scene that would get by today.
No.
Definitely not in the culture or the society and culture we have grown into.
I think this scene, and then there's a scene in Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Those two scenes that both have to do with male on male rape, I don't think you could get away with anymore, which, for better or worse, first, that topic matter in general is disgusting and horrible, but it's something that's almost important to get mainstream audiences to know about in a weird kind of way, because it is something that happens. But whenever you watch it on screen, you're just, like, so disgusted. You're like, this is the worst.
Yeah, it takes an incredibly, like, almost, you have to perfect, like, if you're going to include any sort of scene of sexual assault, like, it needs to be in there for a very good damn reason.
Yeah, and you have to do...
Like, a lot of times I feel like rape scenes are almost exploitative.
Yeah.
And just completely uncalled for. Like, you could get the message out, or get the message by that someone was sexually assaulted
without doing that.
Exactly, without showing it. I feel like Game of Thrones is kind of guilty of that in not last season, but the previous one, where Sansa.
Yeah, the Sansa.
What's his face?
Ramsay Bolton.
Yeah. I think that was a bit of an unnecessary scene, and could have been done better, and without actually having to show it. Because I think that was the general consensus about that scene as well. Yeah,
and I mean, rape. Not to get into a weird topic, but it's a very real thing. But I think in this, what you're saying is you have to have it in the script or in the screenplay in the film for a specific reason. It has to serve the story.
Yes.
It has to be a character motivating moment. And like in Game of Thrones, I get it is, but it's like you don't need to show that. You can just reference it. But when you show it and it's not a critical part of that character's development, you're like, why did you make me sit through that? Like, why did you make me sit through this disgusting, horrible thing? But I think that scene really sticks with you. And then I think maybe the most famous scene in the film maybe is the dancing scene.
Yeah, that's up there for sure.
Which also has a really good Simpsons spoof.
Yes, it does. Yeah, Simpsons has spoofed the Pulp Fiction quite a bit.
Yes.
But yeah, the dancing scene between Uma Thurman and Travolta it's very popular.
So what it is John Travolta is essentially supposed to take Uma Thurman out on a nice night because Ving Rhames is out doing something. So John Travolta's kind of like his hitman. He's like, just take her out for a nice night, blah, 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 blah. And what happens is they go do this whole, this like drive-in kind of dinery sort of place, and they win a dancing contest. But then Uma Thurman overdoses on heroin.
Yes. Yeah, and Steve Buscemi makes a really weird cameo as a waiter who's supposed to look like Buddy Holly.
Oh my! Yeah,
it's very odd, but
it is weird.
Kind of like going back to what you said earlier, where like everyone steals the scene that they're in. Mm-hmm. Even him as like this stupid like one-off character, Buddy Holly impersonator. Even that is like,
yeah,
he stole the scene he was in.
Yeah, he really does, and. Another famous moment from this that I actually was recently rewatching a movie called Get Him to the Greek, which is a Judd Apatow film with Russell Brand and Jonah Hill, where they do the hypodermic needle with the adrenaline in the heart to restart your heart. I don't know if the science behind that is there. I don't know if that works. Who knows? But,
I don't ever want to be in that situation to find out.
Yeah. So Uma Thurman overdoses on heroin and is essentially flatlining, and they... John Travolta has the brilliant idea of taking her to this place where they're like, I know how to fix this. It's a big ass hypodermic needle that like you do like an epidural on your spine with, and they fill it with like adrenaline or some chemical, and they stab her in the heart with it and inject it. And the way they film it, she like springs up. It's really like, whoa, because like essentially they restart her heart from being dead. And then at the end of the night, she's like, wow, thanks for taking me on a nice night. And that kind of just ends.
Yeah, it's very abrupt ending.
Yeah.
But it's almost like what else more to that story needed to be said.
And I think it also implies that that's not the first time she's done that.
Yeah. And I think, she snorted heroin, but she thought it was cocaine.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Problem. Yeah. It's just... And then... I think every story in this, like, even if it seems like it ends abruptly, it ends so perfectly.
Yeah, and they always service the purpose that they need to. And yeah, it's really well done. And I think the ending scene with Samuel L. Jackson diffusing the robbery and murder is a really interesting character scene for him, with the bad motherfucker wallet, which is really cool. That's actually Quentin Tarantino's wallet.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, that was his real wallet that he put in there. And I'm like, that's just super funny. But, so that's there. And the Bible verse he uses is not a real Bible verse.
That's right.
I looked that up because I was like, okay, this seems very dark for the Bible, which, like, religion aside, Bible can be kind of dark. So I looked up that thing. That is the phrase from the Bible, from wherever that is in the Old Testament, is similar, but Quentin Tarantino like rewrote parts of it to service the script more. So the real part in the Bible is like 60% of that scene, but not the entire thing. Right.
Yeah, it's written so well that it seems like it could possibly be there. But yeah, for sure. That kind of took me off guard. I was like, well, yeah, when I first read that, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not? I'm like, wow, that's actually very good writing then.
Yeah. And I looked that up for the first time for researching this episode, and I was like, wow, that is very impressive. But I can only imagine how much of a nightmare it was to write this script. Like, holy shit. That would have been...
Yeah, and then, even like editing this film was probably...
Yeah.
Though I would have to look and... Yeah, let's look that up. Because he had a long-time editor that has worked with him for the long... she died just recently. It was in the past couple of years. Oh, shoot. Come on, IMDb, give me some credits here. Oh, but yeah, I want to say it was this particular woman who is an incredible editor as well. She's done pretty much all of Tarantino's films up till Django Unchained or The Hateful Eight.
Nice. Okay.
I'll find it here in a second.
Okay. So while you're looking that up, I think the consensus on Pulp Fiction, in my opinion, it is his best film.
I would agree.
It is his best film for a number of reasons. There is that weird scene where he says the N-word a bunch of times. I don't understand it. But the film, for so many reasons, is nearly... It's like Reservoir Dogs. For what it is a perfect version of that. It serves exactly what it needs to. And it's pretty rewatchable. And it's nearly 30 years old. It's pushing it. But
yeah, it's up there in age.
And it's not like... It's not for a bad thing. It's of its time, but in a good way. It's very, very... I think in the future, looking at this in 20 years from now, you can look at Pulp Fiction as like a character study of the 90s in that really grimy aspect.
Yes. And the editor was Sally Mink.
Oh, yeah, I know her name. Okay.
Yeah, she worked with him. She died in 2010.
So the last movie she did was probably Inglourious Basterds?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Because Django came out in like 2013, I think.
Yeah.
So she might have done some work on it.
Yeah.
Well, probably not then, because I'm guessing it didn't take him 3 years to film that.
No, yeah. So the last movie that potentially she would have worked on is Inglourious Basterds, because that came out in 2009. So I'm sure that was the last movie she helped with. Right. So, yeah.
But let's see. But just to kind of, pinpoint how well received Pulp Fiction was, we'll go over all the Academy Award nominations. Best Picture, we said before, did not win. That Forrest Gump took that.
Yep.
It was up against, The Shawshank Redemption, Quiz Show, and Four Weddings and a Funeral, along with Forrest Gump. So some steep competition there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do believe that Pulp Fiction should have got that, though I understand why Forrest Gump took it, because it was such a crowd-pleasing movie.
Yeah. This is very divisive.
Yeah. Best Director went to Robert Zemeckis for Forrest Gump, but Tarantino was also nominated for that. John Travolta for Best Actor. Samuel L. Jackson for Best Supporting Actor. Uma Thurman, Best Supporting Actress. Best Screenplay, Tarantino actually did win for Pulp Fiction. Obviously not a documentary. I want to say I also got an editing nod. Let's see, where's it at? Bad Radio Silence. Yes, it was nominated, but Forrest Gump took film editing. So it got a lot of nominations and it only took home one.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. Coming from a movie that's pretty... I think that movie and Forrest Gump are the two out of that category that have really... I mean, Shawshank to some extent, but I think in the cultural vernacular, still Pulp Fiction and Forrest Gump are the two that have made it the most. And, Shawshank Redemption is incredible. Actually incredible. And my boy Roger Deakins was the cinematographer on it. But, those two movies have just stood up the test of time a lot longer. Yeah. So that's Pulp Fiction. We do like it. Do you want to do Jackie Brown? We'll do Jackie Brown really quickly.
Yeah.
It's good.
I would say we probably both agree it's a very good movie, but it's definitely it's the Tarantino movie that is always overlooked.
It is. I don't know why either. I think Jackie Brown has to have the world record for the most amount of F-bombs in a single movie. It has to.
It's probably up there. Because it's a very profane movie, which that's nothing surprising with Tarantino. But I really want to say that what keeps Jackie Brown kind of in the back of people's minds when it comes to Tarantino is because it came on the heels of Pulp Fiction, which was such a cultural milestone.
Yeah,
in an important film. And like we said, it's not a bad movie. It's a very good film. I really like Jackie Brown. But
Me
it's
too.
just like when you release anything after you release like probably top 3 movies of the 90s,
Yeah.
it's gonna either be it's either gonna be looked at like poorly because it wasn't as good, or it's just gonna be forgotten.
Yeah. And Jackie Brown is just forgotten. It's not good. I actually rewatched Jackie Brown for this, and it's good. I think we can move on from that. I don't think people care as much about Jackie Brown either. If you're interested, if you like Tarantino and you like his style, and you want to watch something that will make you chuckle a little bit, but also think, and it's also kind of gritty, watch Jackie Brown. It's good.
Yeah, and it's based on an Elmore Leonard novel.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a big crime novelist, so yeah, it's like right in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, it is very, very well done. It's very Coen Brothers-y.
Yes, and a lot of Tarantino's like love for like exploitation films is in this because it's got what is her name? Fuck.
It's Pam Grier.
Pam Grier. Yeah, she's huge in like 70s blaxploitation films. But yeah, it's also got Sam Jackson, Michael Keaton's in it.
And Robert De Niro's in it.
Yeah.
Chris Tucker's in it. It's a crazy cast. Samuel Jackson. Yeah, it's really, really good. If you want to see something that's kind of Coen Brothers-y, blaxploitation-y stuff, it's good. Watch it.
Yeah, it's worth your time.
And then I think we're gonna do. This is weird, but I'm gonna place the next 3 together. 1 for time reason, and 2 because they're all very kind of similar in a weird way. And I'll make a connection. Kill Bill 1, 2, and Sin City are very similar. So Kill Bill 1 and 2 are kind of the same movie.
It's for the sake of, because no one is ever going to release, or no studio is ever going to put out a 5-hour movie.
Yeah.
Into a theater. Yeah, it had to be split up.
So the reason I'll compare it to Sin City as its brother or sister film is because there's a scene near the end of Kill Bill Volume 1 that takes place in a Japanese bar restaurant thing where it goes black and white. And the way the film is shot and the way the action is so over the top in this movie very much seems like it is the older brother to Sin City. It laid a lot of the cinematic groundwork for what is to come.
I would agree with that. And definitely it's got the... it's basically Kill Bill... The Kill Bill story as a whole is Tarantino's kind of love letter to older, like, Asian action films. Like, whether it be kind of like the Hong Kong, like, kind of shoot 'em ups, or more generally in the case of this movie, it's like kind of the kung fu films.
Yeah,
there's a lot of martial arts fighting. There's sword play galore.
Yes, there's that, and then you also have the like the Enter the Dragon, the Bruce Lee kind of films in there as well, like the Hong Kong kind of things. But then you also get a little bit of like the Kurosawa, like Yojimbo kind of style, where you have the samurai and this like love for samurai culture that's like just peppered in there with a little bit of Western. Yeah,
definitely the scenes that take place around the bride's like wedding, and her attempted assassination. Yeah, definitely feel more Western.
So, Ben, do you want me to tackle this one, and then you do Sin City, or do you want to flip?
We can tag team it if we want.
Okay, so so the film Kill Bill is about Uma Thurman's character, and she's getting married to David Carradine, who rest in peace, and she is there's an attempted assassination attempt upon her with 8 people or 5 people.
The Deadly Viper Assassination Squad.
Yeah.
I want to say what the name was, but yeah, 5 in total.
Yes. So they attempt to kill her, and the entire film, or the entire 2 films, 1 film, is the story of her getting out of a coma and going and killing all of them. But there's flashbacks to her training in the past And then there's present stuff where she goes back and trains and becomes essentially a new age samurai warrior, and gets the Hanzo sword and wreaks havoc. And that's what I'll say. So you can pick up from there.
Yeah, the first part one is definitely the more action and like kung fu oriented one. In the more like, there's more fight scenes, especially with the Crazy 88s before she gets into her duel with Orin Ishii, played awesomely by Lucy Liu. But yeah, I think that's the centerpiece of part one is the Crazy 88s fight, because it's so over the top and brilliantly filmed. There's a lot of wire work, like classic style, like kung fu, like wire work, and just I think one of my personal favorite touches for this movie is the crazy amount of like geyser blood spurts, like, and that's how it was done in like the more violent Japanese or like kung fu films.
Yeah, it's like a pump of like, and they do it in black and white as well, which is an artistic choice that I love.
Coupled with the I don't know the name of the song, but it's like a really kind of like poppy, catchy, like
it's the like woohoo woohoo. It's that one they use for like sprint. That's the one that starts with it, and then they flip into something else.
Yeah, that's the 5, 6, 7, 8 song that they start the scene with. But yeah, when she actually starts fighting the Crazy 88s, there's like this kind of classic rock and roll song that kicks in. It just makes everything like more gleefully fun.
Yeah,
and you kind of start to think like I'm like giddy with like laughter and happiness while watching Uma Thurman just dismember all of these fucking henchmen. And you kind of start to think like, what the fuck is wrong with me?
It's crazy, and the scene is really beautifully shot. It is incredibly well choreographed. Like, holy shit, well choreographed. And it takes place like on a dance floor, and then it moves up a flight of stairs into a room with like this blue paper background.
That is a gorgeous scene.
All done in silhouette. So it's shot through a wall with lights pressed up on it. So everyone is in silhouette moving back and forth. And it almost looks like cutouts. Like if you did like shadow puppets. And they do like the blood with it that splatters up against the scene. And it splatters out like in fountains. And it is so incredibly beautifully done that I don't even know. Like it, if you guys are listening to this and you haven't seen this movie, one, cool, good for you for getting this far through life without seeing Kill Bill. Second, just Google that scene. I think Kill Bill, that scene is just worth the price of admission. It's like 7 or 8 minutes, and it starts off in a bathroom, and she's wearing this motorcycle suit the whole time, this yellow and black motorcycle suit that's become very famous from this scene. And it is just incredibly well done. And the whole movie's a revenge film. So the substance of the film isn't really there. It's just her tracking down like these 5 people and killing them until she gets to Bill, who is the ringleader of this, who is her now ex-fiance.
Yes.
So I think I'm trying to think. The first murder she does, I think we'll just talk about the big ones. We'll talk about this one, the eye.
Oh yeah.
The rattlesnake one with
Michael
Madsen, the rattlesnake one, and then the 5-finger death punch.
Yes. Yeah, it starts off with Vivica A. Fox.
Yes, that is the first one. Oh, we should talk about the escaping the being buried alive. That's a really famous scene.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say my 2 favorite scenes are definitely like the Crazy 88 fight from the first one, but then the entire training segment from the past.
Yes.
In part 2 is an amazing scene.
Yes, where that is very clearly like homage to old Japanese films, but a lot of modern films have used that And I'm like, that's funny that they're referencing Kill Bill that's referencing something else. So, like, it's through, like, that dissemination. It's like, do you really know where your source is? Or are you just referencing Kill Bill? Because Kill Bill, I mean, is incredible for what it is. But most of the film is a reference to other films. It's kind of just a love letter to other things. Which I don't think is a bad thing at all.
No, when it's done this well,
yeah,
like I don't see how you could possibly fault it for that.
Yeah. So you can take it away with the escaping the being buried alive scene, and we'll do escape. You can take escaping being buried alive, and then the eye grab.
So yeah, basically. As it's, I want to say this is one of the first things that happens in part 2, is the bride is going after Bud, who is Michael Madsen's character. She gets up to his kind of trailer in the desert, getting ready to, take him out. She catches a chest full of rock salt from a shotgun blast, which pretty much incapacitates her immediately, and she gets buried alive by Bud, which leads to basically the flashback of her training in Japan under the fella whose name I cannot remember. But basically she learns how to punch a hole through solid wood from like a fingertip distance away. Basically putting your finger on the coffin lid, which she finds herself in, and then just straight punching. And she does this for hours, I want to say, is what the time lapse would probably be. But she eventually punches her way out of the coffin due to her training and gets it, like, escapes, which is just awesome. It's such a badass part of the story.
And it has, like, the Western music playing in the background while it's happening with, like, what is the name of that instrument? The, like, doodly-doo, that kind of thing that's in, like, Westerns, where it's, like, the doo-doo-doo, like, with the, like, Clint Eastwood, like, ultra close-up. When you see that, and there's like that music, what instrument is that being used?
I want to say that's a harmonica.
Is it a harmonica? They have like the harmonica riff while she's doing this, and the whole like afterwards, she climbs out of the ground as the dirt's falling into the casket, and she like gets out of the ground and she walks into the diner and she's like, "Do you have any water?" And that's how the scene ends.
Yeah, and all the while she's buried, I want to say is when chronologically the death of Bud happens.
Yeah, actually.
Through the snake.
Yeah, so those are happening simultaneously.
Yeah, Daryl Hannah as Ellie, who has one eye, which you find out why she has one eye, because the same person that Uma Thurman's character trained under, Ellie, I think she thought she was better than him. Mm-hmm. And he like straight plucks her eye out like lightning quick with his bare fucking hands. And it's a really, really cool scene where she's doing this thing and he like looks back and just boom, out. It's almost like if you like grabbed, like if you see a fly on the wall and you're like, I can get it, I got it. Like that, that's it. And that kind of foreshadows Ellie and the bride's showdown after she escapes from being buried alive. They have a fight inside of Bud's trailer. Very close quarters, like awesomely choreographed fight scene where the bride ends up straight up just taking her other eye. Yeah. And leaving her to be blind. Be blind in pain. She's like, you're not even worth killing. Like, this is your punishment. I think that might be the most haunting scene in the film. Is because they're in this trailer and it's just getting destroyed, and it's a really cool fight, and I don't know how they filmed that because it's clearly in an actual trailer. Yeah. And it's a really well shot scene, just like this. Whoever the cinematographer on there is, good for you, like for being able to like orient everyone in that scene. And then the Hanzo sword is on the ground. And she goes for it, and Uma Thurman just reaches and plucks the other eye out. And it's just so haunting that it's like, she doesn't kill her. She's going to let her die on her own. And yeah, and the snake, the poisonous snake that killed Michael Madsen, still on the ground in the trailer while they're fighting. It's just so well done. Yeah. Kill Bill as a whole is just a badass movie.
It's really badass, but it's also in this weird way almost funny. Like, it's like so close.
Yeah, this is where you start to see like Tarantino's talent with kind of comedic elements of action movies.
Mm-hmm.
He's very good at overtly funny stuff, but also dry humor.
Yes.
Like this is where his sense of humor really starts to shine through, and it just builds through his next few movies as well.
What is this? Oh, we forgot to mention in the first movie when she gets out of her coma, which they imply she was being raped while she was in her coma. She kills someone with her feet in a door. She smashes their head in a door, but their car is called like the Pussy Mobile.
Yeah.
And like it's on his key, and so she's like in a wheelchair trying to find the car, and the car in big pink letters says Pussy Mobile, and she's like, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
And the scene is really cool because she's teaching herself how to walk again, like through mind over matter. She's teaching herself how to use her toes, and you can just feel how tense that moment is where she's like, you can do this.
Like, move your big toe.
Yeah, move
she
your
just
big
does that
toe.
over and over. And of course that goes along with Tarantino's foot fetish. An entire scene of just Uma Thurman's feet.
We haven't talked about that, the foot fetish thing.
It has to be true.
Oh.
Because I think in almost every one of his films,
There's a foot thing.
There's a female foot.
Yeah, he must have a foot thing. Which, I mean, good for you if that's what...
We're not trying to kink shame or anything like that, but it's just like, I think it's funny sometimes.
Yeah, like if that's what helps you get off, dude, feet are cool. I mean, there's way worse things and way more dangerous things that you could be into. So, yeah. So those are Kill Bill 1 and 2. Very good. Not as good as Pulp Fiction.
You're right.
They're different.
Yeah. And I was going to say this with Pulp Fiction. Like, I agree with you. Pulp Fiction is his best movie. It is not my favorite film of his.
Yes, I agree with you. I very much agree that just because it's his best, technically speaking, does not mean it is the one I would choose to watch again.
Right.
Okay, so next, Sin City. Sin City we'll do really lightly because Sin City is really hard for a lot of reasons.
And technically, he just directed a scene.
Yes.
Because it's a Robert Rodriguez film with a special guest direction. And there was a whole Writers Guild like brouhaha about this whole thing because Rodriguez wanted to get like a co-directing credit for Tarantino, but they wouldn't allow it through that guild. Yeah. It was kind of a mess. But do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so we'll do this and Grindhouse at the same time because they're related. Yes. So for those of you who don't know, there's like this Planet Terror Grindhouse thing. It's really complicated to try to explain to people. It's like a brainchild of Tarantino and a bunch of other people. They did like these vignettes, and that's where like the character of Machete comes from, is from these. And Sin City's based off of a graphic novel. It's all done in black and white, but in this weird Technicolor, hyper-realistic black and white stuff. It's really cool. It's a crime noir drama. Quentin Tarantino, does he do the Elijah Wood thing where he's a cannibal?
No, he actually does the scene with Clive Owen and Benicio del Toro in the car.
Oh, he does that scene?
Yes.
Oh, with the girls on the roof? Whereas, like, you just made a mistake.
I don't know if it's that far, but it's where basically Benicio del Toro is talking as a dead dude with like half his head cut off.
Oh, it's that? I did not know that's the scene he did. Okay. Yep. Well, this movie's all shot in black and white. It's very clearly all done on a green screen or blue screen. And it's very gory, very dark. It is really good. Don't just go into it and watch it just because you're like, I want to see a Quentin Tarantino movie. Psych yourself up.
He's a very small part of
It's a very small part, and it's a very twisted movie. It will leave you unsettled. It is not a horror movie, but it is scary in a way.
Yeah. The original writer of the graphic novel, Frank Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, if you were to go and read the graphic novel and then watch the movie, a lot of it is like shot for shot, or rather, panel for shot.
It is very similar to how they did Watchmen.
Yes.
It's if you like that style where you are translating a piece of literature directly into film, you will really like it, especially if you like really dark horror noir. If you don't like those things, do not watch Sin City. you will be very unsettled. There is no redeemable character. No one is a good guy. And the only guy who is a good guy may have raped a child. So, there you go.
I would say I like Clive Owen's character, but also, what's her name? The dancer.
Oh, it's Jessica Alba.
Yeah, I think she's a redeemable character.
Yeah. Okay, Jessica Alba is redeemable.
But she's basically eye candy for the movie.
Yeah, she is. And that's a big thing that when we talked about Gamergate, this movie is like the incel, like holy Bible of films.
Yeah, and Frank Miller is a very hard right-leaning guy.
Yes.
And you kind of, like, when you, after you've read Sin City and also seen/read 300, that kind of comes through very clearly with that in mind.
Yeah, I think this movie, 300, and V for Vendetta, another movie that I think is quite well done, are like the incel movies of, like, if you're in an incel, these are the movies that you watch to be like, bro, don't you agree? Like,
I think people that take V for Vendetta as some sort of, like, incel movie, they completely miss the point of that. Because that's an Alan Moore story.
It is an Alan Moore story.
And it's, like, completely
the opposite of that.
Yeah. It's just how some people, like, misread Starship Troopers, the film, with, like, as a, like, pro-fascist thing. Or I guess more people thought the book was pro-fascist, but
oh my God,
the film was completely anti, like, and it's clearly, like,
the film,
this is not cool.
Yeah, people who misinterpret, I'll talk about that for a sec. And we'll talk about this with Inglourious Bastards. Starship Troopers is a joke. It is meant to be satire.
And it's brilliantly good satire, but people like it's such a complicated film because it's like I'll start off with I love Starship Troopers. I absolutely love this film, but it's purposefully made to be looked like this like popcorn action sci-fi film with these like completely wooden beautiful actors, and it's all done deliberately.
Yeah, it's very meta.
Yeah, like the director knew what he was doing. He purposefully casted these wooden actors who would be part of like a fascistic society's like propaganda film, which this is basically supposed to be. It's a satire of that. But yeah, it's completely misinterpreted so much.
This is a fun fact about Starship Troopers. I watched Starship Troopers in high school. We were shown it in a class.
What?
Yeah. I was in a psychology class my senior year. I was in like an AP psychology class, and shout out to Mr. Dolan. We watched Starship Troopers in class because of like propaganda and psychology behind it. And he's like, I think this is a brilliant way to show people this. And we also watched The Big Lebowski in that class for just a completely separate reason. But no, Starship Troopers is so brilliant on like a very deep level. Like if you just showed someone that, they'd be like, what the hell? And if they didn't you have to get it. And I think a little bit of Sin City is like that too. You kind of have to get what went into the making of this film, because if you take this film for face value, it's one thing. But if you know about who wrote it and all this stuff, you're like, this makes sense. This is what it is. And I think that can also be said for a lot of Tarantino's work. If you really look into if you really look into him, the art versus the artist, it makes sense. And I think that's what we'll talk about here in a minute after we get through his next few films. But also Grindhouse, do watch it if you want to see something really weird.
Yeah, Grindhouse is Tarantino, or his portion of Grindhouse, Death Proof, is more of a straight up like horror film for half of it, but then a revenge / like exploitation film for the last half, where the group of women are trying to chase down Kurt Russell. And it's one of his weaker films as far as like, it's very dialogue heavy, but the stunt, the car chases and stunts are some of the best like stuff that's ever been filmed.
Yeah, it is. That movie is what I would call a sleeper hit. And I don't know. I think if you had to pick the worst movies to show someone on a date, it would be Schindler's List, which is a brilliant film, and Grindhouse. Because if you show someone that on a date, they'll think one of two things. You're going to murder them, or you're crazy. Or they'll fall in love with you because they're a film fan.
When Grindhouse came out back in 2007, April of 2007, I so remember so distinctively because I skipped an entire day's worth of class to go see the first showing in college. Yeah, because I was so fucking excited for this film, and I was not disappointed. It was like me and 3 other people at like a 11:30 in the morning showing, and I sat there for all 4 hours of that fucking showing, and I had a blast with that double feature. I knew, so this is going to date me as well. So this is, for people listening, this is when Blockbuster was a thing. My friend, DVD rentals.
Yeah. Ooh. So what happened is in 2007, I was in 7th grade in 2007. And Blockbuster was at the height of its power. And what happened was one of my buddies had an older brother. And we went to Blockbuster that was right by where I live. And we like saw it and we're like, whoa, this looks really cool. And how old are you in 7th grade? Like 12? So 12-year-old Russell and one of my buddies watched that at a sleepover. That may have been a very important formative decision for me, but it also did scar me. I think if you show a 12-year-old that movie without understanding any of what went into that, and that was probably right around, maybe right after I saw Pulp Fiction for the first time, and I was like, oh, I know the name Quentin Tarantino, just because you're a kid and you know movies, and my parents love movies. Then you see Grindhouse. Do you remember, you'll know, a lot of people may not, do you remember Rotten.com where you could look up people like gross like injuries and stuff?
Yeah.
Like, it's like when you see that for the first time, you're like, what the hell just happened? My 12-year-old brain was so traumatized from all of that, because if you don't know what that is, you're going into this and it's essentially like it's so much stimulation in the weirdest way.
And are you talking like the combination of Death Proof and Planet Terror?
Okay,
yeah, Planet Terror is bonkers.
It's so weird. So. Yeah, it's so weird, and I'd never seen anything like that. I'm like, what is this? Like, and then I was kind of addicted to it. I was like, whoa, this is something I've never seen before, because it's just balls to the wall violence and action and insanity. And I think the thing that I saw closest to that was probably Saw. Was probably the thing that I've seen at that time that was the most similar to it. But Saw is really serious in a way that Death Proof and Planet Terror aren't.
Right.
And even as a kid, you know that. There's something about this where you can tell that they're different, but you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I just remember I got back from that sleepover. I remember it so vividly. My parents were like, how was it? I'm like, it was okay. Just like the whole time. But yeah, definitely go see those movies. They're really weird. If you like really weird horror shit, go see it. Okay.
So yeah, we should probably plow through the rest of these.
Yeah, we'll plow through the rest of them really quick. Let's do the other two out of order. Let's do Django Unchained, Hateful Eight, and then we'll end with Inglourious Bastards.
Okay.
So Django Unchained and Hateful Eight, I get confused because they're kind of, you could watch those movies back to back, because they're very similar period.
Yeah, they're westerns. Django is not post Civil War. Hateful Eight is, but they're still both westerns.
Yes, they're both westerns with a lot of modern music. There's a lot of Rick Ross in Django Unchained, which I don't mind. I love Django Unchained until you get to the plantation. That's all I'll say.
I love all of it.
Really?
I really do love this movie. One of my favorite scenes is actually the Klan scene.
That
where Jonah Hill and what's his name from Miami Vice.
Yeah.
They're made to look like absolute buffoons.
Yes.
And that's one of my favorite things that any filmmaker or any sort of like, medium does, is when they turn like racist pieces of shit into absolute idiots.
Yes, and it shows how stupid you have to be to believe in the ideology of the Klan. And it's like the whole like, oh, my wife didn't cut my mask the right way. And it's it's played for comedy in such a creative way that, because the rest of the movie is not a comedy. And then
it takes a very sharp, serious tone once you do get to Calvin Candy's like plantation. But I still very much enjoy or love the rest of that movie, even if it does take that kind of very hard left into like, okay, time to get down to business.
Yes.
Django needs to kill some fucking plantation owners and save his wife.
And that movie is just like, yeah, let's kill some racist assholes. The movie. I got the same feeling leaving Django Unchained that I did leaving BlacKkKlansman. I was like, yes.
I still need to see that.
When you see that, we will do a whole episode on BlacKkKlansman.
Okay.
We should do a Spike Lee episode. That'd be it.
Woo. Okay.
That's an episode.
That'll be another big undertaking.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff to watch. But sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. So when we're talking about this, I think the hardest scenes to watch are in the beginning when he's at the plantation, when there's like they're whipping at the beginning.
Yeah.
That scene's hard. And then when he gets back to Brunhilde, his wife, and she's in the box
like the
thing
box,
underground, that scene is so gut-wrenching to watch. And
yes, and
the dogs.
Oh, yeah. And for all those scenes, too, is another reason why I really, really like / love this movie, is because Tarantino does take that turn necessarily so to make it serious. Like, he doesn't make those kind of things a punchline.
Yes.
He says, okay, we've had our fun. Now it's time to get back to remembering that the institution of slavery was fucking horrific.
Yeah.
And that anything that might befall these plantation slave owners and these, racist people that are employed there, anything that befalls them is deserved.
Yes. And the only reason I said I don't like the movie after it gets to the plantation isn't because of the film. It just like takes this weird turn in a direction that I don't know if I liked. And it was just, there's something about the turn of the film that I was like, okay. But it almost seemed, maybe it was purposeful, but Leonardo DiCaprio's performance was so hammed up in such a weird way that I was like,
It's jarring.
It is jarring. It's such a weird left turn from the rest of the film because Christoph Waltz, who does win Best Supporting Actor for this movie.
I was very happy about that win.
Yes.
Though I thought he deserved it more so for Inglourious Bastards. We'll get to that.
Yes. He won for Inglourious Bastards. No, he didn't.
I know he won for Django Unchained. He was nominated, I know that much.
Wait, let me look.
Yep. Look it up.
He did win. He did win for Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, did he? Okay, so he won twice.
Yeah, he won 2 back-to-back.
Well, fucking good for him.
Yeah. So Django Unchained, it's a really good movie. If you're a normal person and you think slavery is the worst, you should watch it. It'll give you a little bit of that, justice. And the last 10 minutes of the movie are incredible. Where he just goes in there, guns blazing, and destroys everything. It is such a feeling of like relief, and it's such a like, yeah, that is so cool because it's so non-realistic. But he just goes in there with the guns and blows people through walls, and it's incredible. So I think that might be the most rewatchable Tarantino movie, in my opinion.
Okay.
And then we'll do Hateful Eight really quick, and then we'll do Inglourious Bastards. Hateful Eight is Clue, but it's in the West, and it's in a house. And Channing Tatum's in it for 15 seconds. I think Clue is his best written film. Or not Clue, Hateful Eight.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I think Hateful Eight is his best written film.
I would have to disagree. I think his best written is still probably Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
But it's a very it's a very well done, different direction for him as far as like what he had been doing for the past 3 or 4 films, like just straight up action movies.
Yeah,
this one was the slow burn. Let's like really dig into these characters. It was basically the basement scene in Inglourious Bastards, the movie.
Yes. So getting through Hateful Eight really quick, it's really good. It is, the entire thing is dialogue, and it's trying to figure out who did a thing. I don't want to spoil. This is the only movie on the list I don't want to spoil, because you should watch it. And it's on Netflix right now, so seriously, you have no reason not to watch it. Or it's on Amazon Prime or Hulu or something. I know you can find it online streaming. Go watch it. It is all about like 8 people in a cabin that are snowed in, trying to figure out who did something. Mm-hmm. And it's slowly, there's poison involved, there's shooting involved, and there's a twist near the end that is so funny, but in like this weird way, you're like, what the hell is happening? And the final scenes of the movie are 2 characters strangling another character that is so visceral, but also so like rewarding that you're like, you almost hate yourself for being like, I want them to kill this person so bad, and they show it and they don't let you stop seeing it. And you're like, yeah.
Yeah. I would say probably the reason why I don't think it's one of his better written, though I do still really enjoy this film, that's a long-ass movie.
It's like 3 hours.
It's about a half hour to 45 minutes too long.
I think you could cut out stuff in the beginning. I think once you get past a certain scene that has to do with poison, that's when it really starts getting good. There's some fluff, and there's some stuff that happens in a stable, and there's some stuff that happens with like an outhouse. You can cut all that out.
I would agree, yeah. After the scene you're talking about, much of that is necessary.
Yes.
And one of my favorite little tidbits about that movie is the guitar that gets smashed by Kurt Russell. That was like a priceless guitar.
Really?
That Kurt Russell was not supposed to break. It was supposed to be replaced with a replica, like a prop, and he smashed the real one.
That's incredible.
And like the organization that like lent it to Tarantino to use for the film were like, you just fucking destroyed like $1 million guitar. And I heard he felt like really bad, and Tarantino was kind of pissed about it. But like,
it happens in film. Like you can be pissed, but it's like, sorry, it happened. And that movie made so much money. So, hey, whatever for the scene, right?
Yeah.
So yes, no, that movie is quite good. And then let's talk about the most divisive out of all of his films, Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
Did we watch Inglourious Bastards for Jewish cinema?
One of our fellow students did a presentation on it.
Okay, because I remember I rewatched it around then.
Yeah, it was. I felt like doing this film for that class as a presentation was really grasping at straws, and trying to take the presentation seriously, because like you did like Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Another person did Munich.
Yeah.
More serious films. I did a comedy, but it was wholly based on like the Jewish lifestyle and kind of Jews making fun of themselves.
Yes.
And even that fit. And then another person, one kid did Inglourious Bastards, which was it's an exploitation. Is Jew exploitation a thing?
So, to phrase, Ben and I were in a Jewish cinema class. That's why we were all focusing on Jewish films. It's not like we all, for some reason, picked Jewish-ish films. We were in a Jewish cinema and Jewish history through the art of cinema class, which was super interesting. That's how I met Ben.
It is. It was a very interesting class. I enjoyed it.
But, okay, let's get into Inglourious Bastards. Do you like it, yes or no?
It's my personal favorite.
Okay. Here's my
Tarantino's
opinion.
Films.
I really, really, really like it, but I understand why people think it is bad taste. There are there is the end of the movie. They kill Hitler in a movie theater by blowing his brains out. That's bad taste. I get that. But I think what Quentin Tarantino was going for is this exploitationist thing. And this movie might be his funniest movie. There is...
I would say yes. I'd say it's his funniest one, followed very closely for me by Django.
Yes.
And a lot of the earlier parts of that film.
Everything that has to do with the Apaches, is their group called?
Aldo Rain's group of the Bastards. Yeah.
The Inglourious Bastards, the Inglourious Bastards, the Apache guys. Everything that they do on screen is so fucking funny. You just can't stop but laugh. And one of the things that this film does very well, that on rewatching it 4 days ago, when they had someone die, there's no music. There is very specifically no music when people are killed execution style, where a lot of movies will have a boom or something. This movie, when someone gets shot, it's just they're dead. On to the next person.
I would have to, because I did rewatch that for this episode. I'm going to have to rewatch it again.
Yeah, when they're...
I guess the one thing I can think of where there maybe was music was the very, very first scene where the family under the floorboards. Okay.
The family under the floorboards with the milk scene, and in the French countryside with the... I guess we can call him it because it's his name in the script, and I don't like... It's kind of like an offensive term, the Jew hunter.
Yeah, Colonel Hans Landa.
Yeah, played incredibly by Christoph Waltz.
One of the best portrayals of a movie villain ever.
Oh my god, if you didn't hate Nazis before this, I don't know why you wouldn't hate Nazis. You will hate Nazis after this. The opening scene is in the French countryside, and if you don't know a whole lot about World War II, Germany took over France. Was not a good thing, and that's what D-Day is. That's why Normandy is in France. There you go, a little bit of history. So the Nazis are going around to the French countryside and trying to round up all of the Jews. This family, who are farmers, are hiding a family of Jewish people in their basement. Christoph Waltz knows this going into the scene. That's why he stops there. And the whole scene is meant to be played as a cat and mouse game, but psychologically. The whole time he knows they're there. And he's just waiting to see if the guy who owns the house is willing to say it or not. And when I first watched the scene, I'm like, oh, wait, maybe he can get away with it and he'll leave. Christoph Waltz the entire time knows. If you rewatch it and you go into with that idea, he knows the entire time. And because there's times he looks at the floor and he's looking around like he knows. It is one of the most tense scenes that I have ever seen in film. There's
this film alone has several scenes of tension building that it's a masterclass in how to build tension.
This scene, the basement with Michael Fassbender, which that's such a one-off role for him, but it's so good. And then the scene at brunch when they're eating the apple pie or whatever it is, they're eating this apple turnover, and the girl who was in the basement of the house escapes, and she's at a luncheon with Christoph Waltz, the person who just killed her entire family, and they're eating together, and the whole scene is in German. And a lot of the movie's actually not in English. And it is so tense because you think the entire time, oh shit, he's going to find out who she is. And it's just a reverse shot in the camera. And there's these little breaks in tension for comedic effect. But it's you get this little bit of relief where you're but then you're oh wait, they're still in the situation. Where you take a half breath, but then you're oh no, he's still there. They still know. And this film, it might be, the more I think about it after I watch it, it is so good. And this movie does a very meta exploitation on itself. Because there's a movie within the movie about Nazi exploitationism.
A propaganda film within the actual film, which was entirely filmed in Germany.
Yes.
Much to the fear and chagrin of the German
government and
the workers that were, or the crew that was working on that propaganda film. They're you can't have all these like Nazi like swastika banners hanging up in Germany. This is against the law.
Yeah. And so the film, Ben, you can spoil the end, how the film culminates and what the Inglorious Bastards end up doing and how Christoph Waltz gets his comeuppance.
Oh, it's awesome.
Okay.
But yeah, basically throughout the whole film, like Christoph Waltz keeps building up his character as, and what I think what makes him one of my favorite movie villains ever is he is such an evil person, but he's always the most charming person.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever he's in a scene, like he'll fucking get under your skin as like the nicest person, but in the end, he is a decorated war hero for the Nazi regime. So yeah, he's actually evil, but he'll make you smile. He'll fucking make you laugh, like, and that's what works so well for him. So yeah, throughout the film, he's kind of the main foe that's trying to hunt down. Well, he's not really trying to hunt down the bastards themselves, but
he's on their tail.
Right. He's always like a step behind them, but eventually he does catch up with them during the bastards' their plot to assassinate most of the Nazi government within one theater.
Yes.
He ends up kidnapping Brad Pitt's character Aldo Rain and one other of the bastards, who's kind of like a...
It's B.J. Novak, the guy who created The Office.
Novak from The Office. He doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, but he does get his due diligence during this last scene. Basically, Hans Landa is smart enough to where he realizes that the war is about to end because the Nazis are losing. So he asks Brad Pitt's character to make a deal with the American government for his surrender to the American government, but he gets like basically no war crimes put against him. He gets like a cottage house like on the ocean or something like that. And basically, yeah, Brad Pitt, his character does convince like the American government that okay, yeah, we're going to do this. And Hans Landa's part is he has to surrender himself, like in the French countryside. They would take him into custody. So this portion of the plot is taking place. Basically, Brad Pitt's character just says, "Fuck that! You're not getting off this lightly," and he kills a couple of the Nazi escorts that are supposed to help surrender Hans Landa, and he says, it says something to the effect of, I'm gonna end up giving you up to the American government, but when you do, you're going to be taking off this Nazi uniform, and no one's going to know you're a Nazi. I'm going to put something on you so people are going to realize you're a Nazi for the rest of your life. And he ends up carving a swastika on the dude's forehead with a knife. And it's really fucking unsettling to watch. Yeah. But it's so satisfying to watch too.
And so Brad Pitt's
and that's how the movie ends.
Yes. It ends on that. And Brad Pitt's character is like, he's like, I'm part Apache. And he has like this really weird, overly American accent, which is really... He's like
very heavy Southern drawl.
Yeah, it's really funny, and he's like, I'm a really hardcore American Jew, and I'm here to kill Nazis, and it's incredibly well done. And so he skins them because he thinks of himself as an Apache, like a native war chief.
Yeah, he scalps every Nazi that he finds, or his team does,
and he like has them with him, and it's really gross, but it's really good. And then at the end, with that scene where he's carving the swastika straight into his forehead, I don't know if the prosthetics team on that movie and the special effects used for that are so good. Like, it is so convincing that he's taking the edge of a Bowie knife and putting a swastika in Christoph Waltz's forehead. It's just so well done. And I think the funniest line the funniest scene in the entire movie is when they're at the theater. And Brad Pitt's pretending to be French, and he's
Italian.
He's pretending to be an Italian who's attending this theater as like an honored guest, and he's like buongiorno and like all this other stuff, and it's so well done because Brad Pitt is so straight faced about it. He's such a straight man, and like Christoph Waltz is just like looking at him, and I can only imagine on set how hard they were laughing when they're like, okay, composure, get this scene. And
yeah. I think my favorite line from this is near the end when he's getting ready to carve that swastika into Christoph Waltz's head. Waltz is going nuts because he's like, "You're going to get hanged for this. Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt just says something like, "No, I'm just going to get yelled at. I've been yelled at before."
Oh, yeah, like, I'm used to that. This is just going to be getting yelled at. And, yeah, that's such a good line. I think Inglourious Bastards, yeah, is incredible. There's a lot of things that are very possibly bad taste about it, in all reality. But it's just so well crafted as a film. And
yeah, this is the thing. That's the thing we talked about in the Jewish cinema class is the kind of revisionist history aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand where or how that could definitely ruffle feathers among the Jewish community.
Yes,
it may seem disrespectful to some of them because of the atrocities that were done to their people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I will probably sound like a dick when I say like I don't see the problem with it. I'm not a Jewish person, so I obviously cannot speak for anybody in the Jewish community.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at it, the film through the lens of, yes, it's supposed to be an exploitation film /
mm-hmm.
revisionist history, like,
yes,
this is, you know, Tarantino didn't make this in a way that would belittle what actually happened.
Yeah, it that's a really good point, actually, and like Ben just said, neither of us are Jewish. Neither of us are from that. And thank God, I guess, because I only can imagine how horrible that is, especially potentially watching this movie with a grandparent who was part of the Holocaust or was, like, escaped. Yes, 100%. I can totally see it. But this movie, I think, was done to show that yeah, there is something horrible there, and we understand that, but you can still make a movie and kill Nazis and clearly show that these people are disgusting monsters and give them their comeuppance in a really interesting revisionist history way that isn't saying the Holocaust didn't happen. It's just saying this is this kind of like catharsis that we have, that like we want to kill Nazis. Let's make up a world where we can. And yeah. I think there's something important about that, but I do get why people get offended. But there is this like catharsis to that film where after you're done, you're like, fuck yeah, like they killed Nazis. And same with Django Unchained. It's like they killed slave owners. Like it's weird and horrible, but you're killing the enemy, but just in a weird way. And I think that's why you can get away with those films.
Yeah, I would like to believe that it was Tarantino's like big fuck you to like Nazis and people that believe in this thing still.
Yeah, which is
like yeah, it's like, here's your idol, we're gonna fucking blow his face off with a machine gun
in the film. And that's okay. You gotta watch Black Klansman. We have to do an episode on that because
okay, I will rent that and I will watch it and we'll get into it.
Oh, thank God. But yeah, so that was a little bit on Tarantino. We talked a little bit about his personal life. There's some stuff I do not agree with, but I do like his movies.
Yeah,
there's a lot I don't agree with, but
we talked about his overt use of the N-word. I think there was just recently some things of how he might have treated some of his particularly female actresses on set. Uma Thurman might have had like a bit of a disagreement, maybe a very light word to use, but her and him had a lot of problems, I heard. But I think also they have made up and made amends through that. Yeah,
there's been some potentially nefarious type things that have happened on sets with Quentin Tarantino, and no one has denied that either, which is weird in a different way. But in some sense, you have to separate the art from the artist. John Lennon apparently beat up women. That's not cool. He still made the song like, what? I'm not really a big John Lennon fan, but he
was still a member of the Beatles.
What's his really famous song? Imagine. Yeah, there we go. I almost said Believe, but whatever. But yeah, no, it's the same kind of thing. And if you've learned anything from this, we're big movie fans. We like these movies, and Jackie Brown is underrated. But yeah, Ben, This is our longest episode ever. We're pushing boundaries on the show.
Well, if we had no time limits, we could have kept going.
This could have been 6 hours.
Movie.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so this is our first in our Directors series of episodes. So this will be Directors series episode 1. And we're going to just go through a bunch of different ones. So we hope you like this. Guys, we do have a website for the show. It's always in the description. All that fun stuff. But Ben, I'm going to let you sign off. This is me signing off. Bye, guys. But Ben.
Thanks as always, everybody, for listening. We hope to catch you next week. This has been See What Sticks, a podcast about everything and nothing. Have a great week. We'll catch you next time. Bye.